Okay, welcome and introduce yourselves.
Thank you for having us. I'm Allison.
And I'm Samantha.
And we are
the Garcia Sisters.
We are the Garcia Sisters. That's it, yeah.
All right, so you're the Garcia Sisters, and what do the Garcia Sisters do?
But yeah, we are screenwriters. Primarily, we actually only write horror, but it's more psychological horror. It's just dealing with fear of the unknown, tapping into those primal instincts of like flight or the fight, which I'm always going to flee. Sam's going to fight. We're polar opposites.
I'll be that character that goes to investigate that strange noise.
I'm probably the first one to die. No survival skills. Yeah.
All right, so what's the background here? I mean, how did you both start
How do we...
working together and
Writing books.
We started many years ago writing books for young adult. And yeah, again, it was for the horror genre, writing for teens, which was fun. It was a lot of fun to do. But we did transition throughout the years, and we decided to write more for the adult, more of a mature age, because we started to notice with books, we did have an audience that were purchasing the book, but we also had a more mature audience that were buying the book. So we thought, maybe we should tailor more to that crowd.
Yeah. And the realization happened when believe it was like 2015 or 2016. The book was published, it was launched, and we got an email from the event manager of the Melbourne Writers Festival and said, do you want to launch the book? Please come. And we're like, yes, it's huge. We go every year as, just fans, and this time we get to participate in it. And it was true. We found out that even though it was for young adults, it got sold out, but it was mainly adults actually buying it. And some people did criticize, saying maybe it's a bit too scary for children. And I thought, well, we're from the 80s. I thought maybe, probably have that mentality of like Freddy Krueger and all that. So it was more actually popular with older people, like in 40s and plus. And that was called The Door. That was our first book. It was part of a series. And we even did a children's picture book. So initially, though, years ago, we started off that we just wanted to write books because I have no more room in my bookcase. I absolutely love reading. She loves reading. We equally had a passion, though, for cinema, for TV, movies, just how it's even created. And it was kind of like a very organic transition. So the first book that we did, we adapted it into a screenplay, and now it's also a limited series.
But we originally wrote it as a feature. We thought, okay, let's write it as a feature. But then I said to us, let's write it as a pilot. Let's try it. And I find... if I had to choose, I kind of prefer writing pilots instead of features. I mean, they're both great, but I've kind of decided, I kind of love writing more pilots now. So
I'm really curious. How do you write a book with another person? Like creating art by committee.
Yeah.
How does that work?
All right. There's a lot of planning. A lot. And I can... If there's anyone listening to this that has someone else that's writing like together as a partnership, there's so much planning. There's a lot of planning. There's arguments. There's disagreements. Yes, because I probably want this character to die. Or
there haven't been any tears so far. So
no tears. Okay. No tears of blood yet. We haven't gotten to that stage yet. Not yet.
But it's more to the point where it's just so meticulously planned where we know before we do anything, we know the whole story, like the start, the middle, why it's happening, and especially how it's going to end. So what we do is like, Chapter 1, she'll write it. Chapter 2, I write it. So, and then we swap. So I know exactly everything that she's writing and she knows everything that I'm writing as well. So it's almost like it's me, but I've got like a double me and like, do you know what I mean? And that's the same with screenwriting as well. So it's the planning that goes involved. I mean, it helps because it feels like it's half the job, but communication is key like that.
So you don't do this thing where you might... edit each other's work?
Oh, yes.
Oh, so you do that. So you, Samantha will write a chapter and then...
Correct.
Allison will kind of go through it and make changes and stuff like that.
Yes, exactly. So even if she's written a chapter, we'll exchange, I'll read it, do the necessary corrections, and so will Allison.
Yeah, absolutely. We just have this rule where even in screenwriting or if it's in books, if there is something that we want to delete or change, we have to let each other know and why.
Yeah.
So we're always on the same page. And we've got this massive whiteboard that I think is just way too big, but it's got everything there. So I know everything that she's doing, everything that I'm doing. So it just makes it a lot more easier, more seamless.
The process doesn't get bogged down occasionally doing that at all?
No, to be honest, I think in that sense, we're very lucky that we've never had writer's block.
No.
And sometimes we're just talking, we could even be just going to Jolly Miller and just having a coffee, and then we'll just have an idea. Like, this is really random, but we had, for our third pilot, we had this idea because we went to hospital because our dad dislocated his shoulder and we were in emergency and this is how we get ideas, very random. And we were in front of bed 19 and I'm just looking at Sam and we both looked at each other and I said,
Like, there's a story right there.
and I'm like, I was thinking exactly the same. So there we go back to the whiteboard and we write everything down. Yeah. So in that sense, our horror style is almost the same.
Almost the same.
So you're quite in sync as artists and as writers.
Yeah.
Okay, that's I would think you're incredibly lucky.
Yeah,
in that
true.
respect.
Yeah, no, you're right, because we've had we have some friends overseas in America, they have tried to write with maybe their best friend and all that. And it is unfortunate because some friendships have been ruined because there's such a difference of opinions and all that. And, we've said to them, just if you can at least just agree or at least, agree to disagree, but work together as a team. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I suppose in that sense, we're very lucky where it's almost like I'm already reading her mind. I already know. So,
Is there like almost like a hierarchy? Does one person take lead?
I am not afraid to admit, I do think Sam is more of a natural leader. Not afraid to admit that. I think for me, I like the more emotional side. Like I have all these ideas, but she's more like, all right, let's implement them. Let's do this and let's do that. And don't even get me started on financials and like anything to do with budget. I'm terrible with that. But yeah, no, we kind of do complement each other though. Yeah. But I'm not afraid to admit it. She's the first to take action.
Yeah, I like to structure the story too. Looking at the structure, how it's coming, and most importantly, what do you want the audience to feel at the end of the day? In our case, we love to make the audience to feel the fear of the unknown. That's a scary thing. The fear of the unknown. People react so differently to that. Some people run off and hide. Some people go commando. There's a bit of everything. But I love exploring that area, the fear of the unknown.
Yeah, I can only watch scary movies during the day.
That's like
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
You were talking about the structure of a story.
Correct.
How does a story get structured? Can you kind of go into that a little?
Okay, so for novels or for screenwriting?
Let's start with novels.
Let's start with novels. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. The structure we use is Save the Cat. If anyone has
like a cat stuck in a tree sort of thing.
Well, the image is actually like that. And you are right. Yeah, it's a very famous book.
It's
Save
a famous
the Cat.
book.
Yes.
Save the Cat. They've written for novels, for movies, TV shows. And I have noticed using that structure doesn't fail. There are other structures out there that you can use, and I'm sure they are great. But using the structure of Save the Cat, it's fantastic. You've got the beat boards, for example, the inciting incident. You've got the midsection. You've got the cliffhangers. You don't want to leave the audience bored. You want to leave the audience saying, what's going to happen next? And I've noticed it's worked for us. It has.
Yeah.
That's our secret. It's no secret, really. If someone said, how do you structure it? I use Save the Cat.
Yes. And that book has been quite instrumental because the way you can structure a book is pretty much the way you can actually structure if you write a movie or if you actually write a series as well. The doom and gloom, someone has to save the day and all that. So by following those, it just makes it so much more easier.
Is that kind of like starting from the end and working back? Or I'm not a writer, so I'm trying to understand.
I prefer to do it from the start to the end.
But you have I guess with the Save the Cat thing, you have the end in mind.
Yes.
When you start.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
it absolutely annoys me if I do not even have the title. I know some people don't care about that, but even if I don't know how it's going to end, I can't sleep.
Yeah.
And I ruminate, and I won't leave her alone, poor thing, until it's like, why is this happening? And how's this going to end? Because for us, it has to be a satisfying ending. It's like at the end, whether it's a reader or a viewer, we just want to give them what they want. Everyone's rooting for the character. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's been some like good horror shows and movies where it's like, it's good, and then it ends and you're like, no. So it's like, that's something we're trying to hopefully avoid.
Okay, well, that brings me in. How do you take, say, a book and make it into a screenplay?
How do you take a book into... Okay, first of all, what I would do if I was to grab any book, first I definitely read it. I want to get to know the character, because if we're talking about a character for a feature, it's about the story. You grab a story for a TV, it's about the character. It is. So I want to know in the novel, how does the character grow? What does the character learn in the end? What is the arc? How are they in the beginning, and who are they at the end of the book? Who are they? There needs to be a huge transition, some sort of learning, because there's a difference between a want and a need. What do they really need to learn? That's the first thing I would base it
That
on.
was a very big... At the start, like I did struggle from that transition, because like in a book, you've got the space to say, for example, it's just an example, Nancy's heart was aching, but you can't really put that in a screenplay. No, the viewer doesn't know that. So you've actually got to make sure you write in a way that the viewer knows that her heart is aching, for example. So there's just little differences where I suppose a novel, you're a bit more free to describe a feeling and all that, but not necessarily when you're writing a screenplay, you've actually got to show it. So,
Yeah, and are you doing that when you're taking, say, something you've both written, and kind of translating it into a screenplay, let's say? Are you thinking visually? Because I think because you're writers, you might not think as visually as, say, a cinematographer would, or something like that. And
Absolutely.
I guess you have to know what to leave out of the screenplay in terms of the dialogue, don't you?
Absolutely.
And
You said it
not
perfectly.
just dialogue, but the descriptive sort of language used.
Yeah.
You can't use that, so it has to go onto screen.
Yeah.
Are you thinking of that scene?
I am thinking visually. So if there is the cinematographer, he can kind of like get a visual too of what this scene is going to play out. How is it going to play out? So I think very visually when I write scenes, when I write even a chapter, I try to be very visual as possible.
We have we're not trained actresses, but if there's an important scene, we actually do act it out.
Oh yeah.
And because there's a saying, less is more. It's actually up to the director as well. That's why that they're the director. We produce content, but there are times if there's like a really intense scene, because our latest project, Monstra, it's more like that psychological horror. So if there is a really pivotal scene, I try and put my actor's hat on and we act it out. I mean, like, that doesn't sound right. No,
Just to see how the
it's
dialogue
like,
sounds too.
yeah, so it's like a trial and error, and then it's you got to be able to let that go. You give it over to the director and how they visualize it too, and then with the cinematographer, and it's a whole team. It's a huge collaboration. So
Yeah, I'm really curious about this because one thing, one writer who's had a lot of films made from their work is Stephen King.
yeah,
And honestly, like
yeah.
that scared me. But
Same.
some of the other adaptations, and I've never read a Stephen King book, I'll admit it, but I'm sure the book was scarier than some of the other films made from his work. And I guess, that would be pretty frustrating for a writer, I believe. And so what's your take on that, on how Stephen King's books have been adapted?
Books versus the movie
Well,
version.
the saying, kill your darlings, where there's a lot of fat that you have to cut out from your books, because the book, we've actually got the really old 80s one
home,
of it, and it's a pretty thick book. And, maybe, a standard movie, how many pages, like what, 90 or something?
Make it Back the one, the original, maybe 120 pages or more.
That would be really frustrating because, again, he's probably describing the feelings and all that. He has to take that all out, because that's up to the director now and the actors. That's their job to convey the emotion. So I imagine that would be really frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just wonder, as I don't know much about the industry of movie making, like as writers, how much input do you have into things like, say, color palette of what it's going to, the way the way it's shot and all that sort of stuff.
With the way it's shot, that's often we don't really have a say with that.
You don't get input into like what cinematographer you might.
No.
What
like.
we do present, what is something that we do have freedom with is presenting a lookbook. So apart from screenwriting, we can present a lookbook. How do we visually see this story, including palettes, images, environment? Yeah. So Monster, for example, is literally based in a house. What kind of house? We visually picked a very English Victorian old style house. We didn't want a modern house. We want something with a bit of history, something with lots of secrets. So of course, in a lookbook, you can present that as a package. So the house, the environment, the town, where's it set?
Ultimately, though, there is a saying that if you want to see three people fighting, put the writer, the director, and the cinematographer in a room, they will all leave fighting by the time they get out. They'll all leave fighting. But they said no. So the lookbook is really important. It gives kind of like already a visual for the director, especially the cinematographer. But at the end of the day, it's not our call. We could say, unless it's really necessary, that for some reason that wall has to be red, but if it's not, it will be cut out. So, yeah. So
you're kind of giving up a lot of control over your creation when you embark on a movie. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's a lot of compromise, obviously. Is that uncomfortable?
No, we're not attached to our work because, we believe in all forms of art, and writing in any form is another form of expression. But we always have said this to everyone: there's like power in collaboration. Yeah. And and it's been many times that even we even have our entertainment lawyer that represents us. He said, "What if you did it this way?" And we're like, You know what?
That's actually a good idea.
Yeah, it's like I never thought of that because we're so into the project though. So that's why we're always open. If someone sees something on how to do it better, I think the problem is, and we've seen it before though, is if you're very, kind of like really married to your work, that's when the problems start because you can take it very personal. And I'll admit, I'm no stranger to it. When we first started, a rejection for me at the start was like, it's the end of the world.
Oh my God.
But I'm like, this is it. Oh my God.
No.
Now it's like, as soon as you hand over a book or a script, there's going to be a lot of opinions. A lot of people want to change everything. You just have to learn to adapt.
Exactly. So, we've worked with script supervisors and we've had feedback saying this isn't working. And we thought of better ideas that made it even stronger. One was how the character was going to interact with another character. It didn't seem really natural. It just seemed to be robotic. So we went back to the drawing board thinking, let's do this instead. It was actually better. It actually made the script even stronger. So sometimes with writers, they feel a little bit defensive when they get really bad feedback. They feel like you're criticizing my work. Hang on. Sit down for a second. Really listen to the feedback because they're there to help you. They are. And if you really think about it, it's like, okay, maybe this does need improvement. Maybe I need to change this. We had to learn that the same way also. Yeah. Because I'm sure with every novice writer out there, you write something, you think it's the best thing. You get feedback, negative feedback, you think that's it. I'm the worst writer in the... No.
Well, it just goes it's the same saying, everyone could be looking at a piece of art and it's the same painting, but those 10 people that are looking at it, they're seeing something different.
Yeah.
So, that's why we're not really, we love what we do, but we're not like married to it. So,
okay,
that makes sense.
That helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
And artists are a sensitive bunch. I know. I'm sensitive as well. So, now you mentioned entertainment lawyer. You have an entertainment lawyer.
Yes.
And that's made me it kind of made me curious about what the industry the industry is like this entertainment lawyer deals with Hollywood or Australia or whereabouts.
Well, pretty much everywhere, mainly in America though. He's fantastic. It's a really good ally because, before, even with, just if you wanted to write a book or a screenplay or script, everyone always kept saying, no, you need an agent, you need a manager. And it's good to have those. But, some things have changed where really you just need a good entertainment lawyer to really help you, negotiations and all that. And they don't have to take on everyone. So when he decided to represent us, for us, that was a huge deal because he has contacts that we would never have. And he's really helped us. He's opened up our eyes, and he's also a producer as well. So he's got his input as well, and it's all great teamwork. So
Okay, is it? I'm talking about Hollywood specifically here.
Yes.
And you hear that it's really cutthroat. It's a really tough town in terms of business, things like that. Is that your experience of it as well?
Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It is. It's, they had that saying of, it's about who you know and all that. And it absolutely is true. There's like this, sometimes how we saw it when we first went to, you could say, Hollywood, it's like this invisible wall. And like, I can see it, but how do I get in? And the only way that we kind of got in, we went to the other side, was just relentlessly just going to all the film festivals, submitting.
Yeah.
And of course, we got heaps of rejections. But
course.
then, you start getting traction, you start winning, and you're like, okay, this is great. But for us, winning was more of like, how could I say? It was more like a, wow, you know what? Someone actually really liked it. Like someone actually understood it.
Yeah.
And then just now, actually in Las Vegas, our pilot is actually nominated for Best Screenplay of the Year. And I'm like,
That was a shock to us.
I'm like,
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. I'm like, us? There's
I
no
had
other
to read
Garcia
that email
Sisters.
twice. I'm like, us? Really? Are you sure?
Yes. But yeah, no, it's very cutthroat. And I remember someone said to me, careful, it's a dog-eat-dog world. And it's very imperative on who you surround yourself with, though. And we're lucky that, with certain, it's actors or actresses, directors, producers, we've noticed for our personal experience, though, that there are more good people than toxic people, you could say. So you just got to be very discerning. That's all.
Yeah, because it just sounds like, when you read on the internet or whatever, it just sounds like every second person there is an asshole. Like, which would mean, I hate to say that, because it would mean one of you are an asshole. So.
Well, we're Geminis. We've got our good side or our bad side. So.
No, oh gosh, I'm
We
so
have
chill.
no, but you're not that far off. We have at certain festivals, like I said, there's more good people than assholes, but we have seen it with our own eyes. And I always think it's a shame because at the end of the day, we're all equal. Just because you have this title or this person's just starting out, when you walk out that door, everyone's the same. And that's why we think it's important to be humble and
Very
always remember
important.
where you come from.
Exactly.
And they're very shocked every time when we go and they think that we're either New Zealand or we're from England. They fail to say Australia. And I'm like, no, Australia. And they're like, so far away.
Far away.
So what are you doing here? I'm like,
It's like around the corner from New Zealand.
thank you. Are we like 4 or 5 hours away from them? Something like that.
But I do think anyone that does want to get into screenwriting, read screenplays that you love. Or movies. What's your favorite movie? Read the screenplay. If you can get your hands on the screenplay, that's what we did. I absolutely loved The Ring when they did it back a couple of years ago. But when I went to the movies and I watched that, it's hard for me to get scared, but I was scared of watching that. I thought, this is great. I need to read the screenplay for that.
You're going to think we're, there's a saying.
Too scary for me. I haven't seen that film.
We laugh because there was a saying where they said that the true psychopaths are the ones that watch horror movies and go straight to bed. And that's us.
That's true.
Because we watched The Nun when it came out.
Yeah.
We watched The Nun. And
I saw that on Instagram.
Yeah,
You
I
posted
saw that.
about that.
That was a good movie.
You
Anyway,
guys are
it's
brave.
Yeah, but that's the thing. The only reason why we were so enthralled and we're like, this is great, because we were analyzing dialogue, the lighting, and we're like, oh, okay, that was a good
That was a
dialogue.
good scene,
And
yeah.
everyone else was just like, And we're like, oh, see how that was a good scene.
That was a good scene.
Yeah,
We're actually
imagine that.
talking throughout the movie.
We're the two ones analysing.
Well, that's good. That would help actually with me if I was watching something like that. If I was analysing it, I think I'd be a little less scared. We were talking earlier before we started recording about the writer's strike. Now I've heard about these things over the years. And it's actually, it surprised me that it's affected you're here and that affects your work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just briefly, we won't go into it too much. Well, I mean, how does it affect you in that you're here, you're not there?
Okay.
It's a trickle effect.
Yeah.
Because our project, thanks to our entertainment lawyer, so he has really good, as I said, good contacts. So what happened was our project Monstra. So just to give you a bit of a backstory and how it affected us, how we got to this point. So it's a limited horror series. And he acquired actors that are actually part of the Screen Actors Guild, so the SAG. So they were SAG actors that we know that they're still on strike. And rightfully so, we really understand like why they should be on strike. And so there are times when we will need to collaborate with other writers that are actually parts also of the Writers Guild in America as well, because it's a huge collaboration. And so we had the actors lined up. It was almost like green light. Like it was always, we were just there. And then he said, I got some bad news. Everyone's going on strike. Everyone, like literally Hollywood's closing down, and major production companies that were going to say yes, they said, no, we're closing now. So they weren't even considering us because of the writers and the actors. We know also with actors that do video games on strike as well. So everything's connected. And everything came to a stop. And we understand because what's happening is just two things. And the one obviously is the pay. It's bad. You know, we even spoke to a screenwriter that's living, and Santa Monica is already expensive as it is. And she couldn't even go to the writer's room because that's how little she's getting paid. And of course,
How little is little?
Okay,
Curious.
so little, I don't know if she wants me to say it, but let's say she couldn't afford an Uber. It's like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And the Screen Actors Guild, it's like a union. It's a
Yes.
union.
Very,
It's
yeah,
like in
very
Australia,
powerful.
like the CFMEU or something
Yeah.
like
Yes.
that. Okay, yeah.
Very strong, very powerful.
Yeah. And the other part, which is why they also went on the union, was all thanks to AI. Now, at the start, I didn't fully understand until he explained it to both of us. So the thing is, and it's actually quite scary though. So basically, if you can go to ChatGPT and you say, write me a pilot of 60 words and be really specific, and less than a minute, it's actually written a really good pilot. You can even write a book. And I was skeptical and I tried it myself and it actually worked. And I thought, wow. So we're talking about thousands and thousands of jobs of writers that are literally going to get out of work.
Can be easily replaced.
Because, you know, ChatGPT, for example, doesn't get sick. You don't have to pay them. You know, there's no sick leave or maternity leave and all that. And that's why part of that negotiation of why now we can all go back to work is because that, I believe, is they've kind of tried to remove that as well. You need the human element as well.
So basically, you can't use AI to produce a script or a pilot. Is that
Well, that's
like
the
one
thing.
of the
They want to make
demands?
sure that
Yeah.
do not use AI, because that's also the other issue with the SAG actors is that, let's just say if we're extras and you've got the main actors, but we're extras. So basically AI could scan us and use us in another movie and not even pay us. And they can do it as often as I like, change your hair color, do whatever I want. That's the power of AI.
Yeah.
If you sign up as an extra for a film, just a bit of a segue here. Are you giving up rights to your likeness then, or I don't know if that's the correct terminology?
I think it would depend on what they're saying, but I think there was a clause there because, you know, you always have to review it. And I know Fran Drescher, who is the president of
The Nanny.
The Nanny, exactly. Yeah, she's been speaking really good, I have to admit, with everything. So they want to remove that as well. It's like, just stop taking jobs away. They're literally ruining Hollywood.
Yeah, that's the real horror story, actually.
Yeah,
I mean,
of course.
how does that make you feel as writers? That
Oh.
your kind of chosen career path could be on the
no,
line.
Scary.
It's scary, absolutely. I'm not going to lie about it. Is it worrying? Yes, it's absolutely. Did I get put off from even writing a little bit this year? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, because there was a time where we just couldn't write. There was no point. Everything shut down. And I started to get really very dismayed, very disappointed.
Yeah,
So
it is disappointing.
I thought all this planning and all because of AI, something that's not even real, that could potentially take away jobs.
Yeah.
What do you think a human writer brings that an AI cannot?
Ooh,
I think emotion.
that's an interesting question.
I don't know. I'd like to think emotion.
Emotions, yeah.
I mean,
But I mean, I'd almost argue that an AI can simulate.
But then
Yeah.
again,
Emotion,
it can
yeah.
simulate anything.
Yeah.
that is true. You know, it's almost like reminds me a bit of the Terminator, you know, when it starts to take over. But that is true. I do agree with you because when I did that test I went to Chat GPT and I said, write me a pilot. It actually came up with characters, their age, and it said, I remember something briefly because I deleted that really angry about that. This character cried. I'm like, well, I couldn't have done that as well. So, yeah.
Do you think? I mean, I'm pretty pessimistic as a person, right? And the way I see it is that, I mean, this is just the beginning, and it's no matter how you try to fight it, the technology is probably going to win. Because I don't, how do you tell? You know, if a person wrote something, or
Exactly.
sorry,
How
I'm
do you
not
tell?
trying to
No, it's-
depress you,
but
by
it's
the way.
true. No, it is true.
but-
It's a,
How can you
it's
tell?
it's a reality now that we're all facing.
Even with
Yeah.
competitions, like screenwriting competitions, when the people receive all the entries and they're reading a script, how do they know if someone wrote that or an AI wrote that? How do they know?
Yeah.
How?
You can't unless the person writes it in front of you without any devices.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the only way, but that's a
Yeah.
bit much, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is
It's-
difficult, and I understand, completely agree. It is here. I don't think it's going to go away. Absolutely not. This is just the beginning.
Yeah, I
too.
think that's why, like, we really respect the pioneers of Hollywood, especially because we like writing. I mean, our style of horror, it's not like graphic and blood and gore, but we're thinking back then, think about the silver screen, like, you know, Dracula, like Bela Lugosi, the original Dracula, or when they did Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, you know, they had to know of those high-tech special effects. There was no AI, but yet they created such classics that it's like you can watch them over and over again. Doesn't matter what generation. And it's like now, it's like literally everything is like AI special effects. Like a bit of that Hollywood magic, has it gone? For me personally, a bit, yes. It has.
Actually, you reminded me of something.
Yeah.
I might mention in a minute. But so you're both fans of practical effects and things
Yeah.
like that,
I like
rather than
practical.
CGI. Because I can't remember who, but one of you does game design.
Oh,
Which
did
that's it's
study
straight.
it, yes.
They're kind of all. It's almost that opinion, almost contradicting yourself a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Look again. I grew up playing video games. I still play.
We
video
grew up
games.
with Atari.
And I think, you know, it's weird because it's actually, what I loved about video games is the story. You look at Mario, you got to go and save another princess, go to another castle. There's a story right there. You got to keep going. You look at on the PS1, Resident Evil. Anyone played Resident Evil back there in the PlayStation 1 was like, oh my God.
Which a lot
I
of
gotta
people
say-
don't know. It actually needs a screenplay as well.
That needs a
all
screenplay.
video games need a screenplay.
Yes,
Yeah.
all video games need a screenplay. But I remember playing Resident Evil back then, years ago. I was in high school, and with Leon and Claire, those characters, I got to save and escape Raccoon City. I loved that. And I think that's what got me into writing, was the story. Just how these characters transition from the start of a video game, from being scared to being absolute heroes towards the end and saving the day. And that's the reason why I did study video game design first, because I wanted to originally get into that, but I couldn't. I just had knockbacks and knockbacks. couldn't break into the industry. And then the global financial crisis came in 2008, I believe.
7 or 8, I can't
7 or
remember.
8?
It was so long ago now.
I know, it feels like it's like more than like feels like last century.
There goes my video game dreams. But I decided to, hey, okay, if I can't do that, what if I write the story instead with Allison? You know, and I always did love the psychological part of it, that how we behave, why do we think the way we think too. I love that.
Well, so why do you feel practical effects in films are better?
I love practical, I guess because, I don't know, growing up in the 80s and watching like James Cameron bringing aliens to life. Movies like that, Predator,
even
like stuff like
just
that.
Jaws,
Or Jaws.
I don't know. For us, that was like growing up. That was like the movie magic.
That was movie magic to me.
And you know, it's like when we actually saw a documentary about all the fails that happened when they were doing, you know, Jaws. The shark got electrocuted. It sank. You know what I mean? It wasn't working and all that. But it's like everybody kept pursuing. They kept working. And I remember I watched that as a child at the drive-in, just here. It was a Coburg drive-in.
Yes.
Oh, just up the road.
Yes.
Yeah. We saw it
like-
back then. We had to put the speaker on the, you know, is it the
Those
window?
were the days.
And I was traumatized. I was so traumatized. You look at it now, and it's like I look at it with appreciation. I'm like,
Yeah.
that was amazing. It looks like a real shark now. And you know, special effects though, to a degree, it's great. You know, you don't.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all because
Yeah.
You
I
look
just love movie magic. That's
you look at the Marvel movies.
They're too much for me.
You cannot do
I
that
can't
movie.
I
That
can't
is a
handle
lot,
those films. I got to be honest. They're
Yeah, well,
visually they
a
really my eyes get sore if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It's just too much.
That happened when I watched Transformers. You know, there was just so much metal going on that I'm like, I don't know what I'm watching.
Yeah.
But
Too many jump cuts.
Yeah. But those kind of movies, if you tried to make those movies maybe 30 years ago, would have been too difficult. Maybe it could have worked, but I think with
Yeah.
those type of movies, you need the special effects.
yeah, I think that's why we always say, always respect the pioneers, because it kind of paved the way to where we are now. Is it going a bit too extreme? Well, yes, it is. But I don't know, it's just those original, like Wolfman and all that. I don't know, it's just those classics where there's just so much appreciation that you're like, that's a classic.
Yeah.
So,
Talking about this reminds me of there's a movie Tree of Life. Have you seen that?
I've heard of it.
I know.
And there's a
haven't.
sequence in it of like the birth of the universe, and it was you know, kind of all
Yes.
the gas clouds in space and all that, and it was all done practically.
wow, yes.
If anyone listening, look it up on YouTube. It's really
watch it
really
now.
really cool.
Tree of Life.
Yeah, Tree of
Yes.
I don't
Life.
know why this sounds
It's-
familiar.
a lot of people don't like the film,
Oh,
but that sequence is beautiful and all practical.
I bet, is Brad Pitt in that? I think it sounds like he is. Tree of
No, there's another actor whose name I can't remember, but
It sounds.
he
yeah,
might
it
have been
sounds
in there.
familiar, yes.
I only remember that sequence
Yeah.
okay.
really from the film. You mentioned, you know, your earlier years video games, Samantha and Allison. Don't know much about you, but I want to go back to the childhood years and what drew you to a more creative path.
Oh, I already know. Walt Disney.
That was a quick answer. Walt Disney.
Walt
yeah.
Disney.
Walt Disney
Yeah,
or Disney movies or Walt
Both.
Disney the person.
Both.
Walt
I'm gonna
Disney.
say
I was
both.
going to say Walt Disney the person as well.
The person as well.
But yeah, I think for us, our parents were. I have to admit. I mean, they were pretty cool. They let us watch Fright Night and Nightmare on Elm Street. You know, I think we came out pretty okay. But I think it was I don't know. It was just weird. Like, you know, we used to get really scared watching those movies at a really young age. But it's like we still pursued. How's this going to end? You know, like even with our older sister too. We're all like, you know, under 10. We're watching Friday the 13th. It's like we should be screaming, but it's like I want to see how it's going to end though. But
we did love our Disney movies and just Walt Disney, his story in the end, how he got to where, how he managed to accomplish and his struggles. Like that was fascinating as someone at a very young age too, because I remember his documentary was on one day on TV and I was looking at it, watching it, and I was completely inspired by his story,
Yeah.
what he could achieve. And he had a lot of setbacks, so many setbacks. And sometimes I do feel that, wow, if he can do it, anyone can do it. It's just really a thing of a mindset.
Actually, I don't know his story, so I'm
Well,
gonna look into that.
there's a really good one. It's called Walt Before Mickey. And it shows from when he was a child growing up in a farm to all the adversities. And a lot of people don't know that it was really thanks to his brother as well that actually helped him, because he lost so much money. And I believe his brother was he a nurse in the war?
Yeah, he served in the war too, I believe as a nurse. And
With his retirement money.
yeah, his
helped
brother
fund,
helped him help with money too to finance the Walt Disney Company. And again, Walt Disney at one point was living on the streets because everything was just falling apart. But if he can pick himself up, anyone can do that. Anyone can. You know, it's just having that resilience of not giving up. Just saying no.
Yeah.
That's I'm going to ask a controversial question now. What do you think Walt Disney would make of Disney today?
I thought of that same. I asked myself that same question, and I'm not kidding you. I think it was like last week. I was I'm gonna say I have a Disney Plus subscription because I like watching The Simpsons still, and I was looking at all the movies and I was thinking, if he were alive today, what would he think? And
What do you think?
I think he would make some changes. Absolutely, I don't think he'd be 100% happy, because he's, he wanted to have, like, as he said, the happiest place on earth. And for him, it was all, Snow White, the first movie he did, like, he went to the premiere and he was so nervous that he couldn't shake people's hands because he was covered in sweat, because he didn't know people's reaction. And I feel like his mentality about movie magic and, just creativity and all that, I feel like I resonate with that. But now I think he'd definitely say, enough of this. We need changes. Yeah, I don't think he'd be 100% happy.
Yeah, I think I understand, and everyone probably understands.
People can read between the lines.
Yeah, what you're saying there.
Yeah.
And, and I actually wonder, I mean, I don't think we're actually going to get a reasonable, a truthful answer out of George Lucas, what he thinks of Star Wars.
Have you seen the new TV shows?
No.
No?
Okay. All right.
Well, we grew up watching, the Star Wars movies. Like, I don't know where it is, but we even had the fake lightsaber and all the, all the fun things of the 80s. But now it's like, it's really branched out. You got Ahsoka, Obi-Wan. It's just branched out so much now. So, and now there's rumors that they want to do, I think, the origin of the Sith.
What, really?
Is it?
Wow.
So it keeps expanding. So
It's I've noticed that this is a bit of a Hollywood thing where they continuously rehash old stories, and it's something that I'm not particularly fond of. I want to see original stories and original ideas. Do you have opinions on that? I'd imagine you do, because you're writing your own original content.
Yeah.
Oof.
Okay, I will say this. Look, I'm not a huge fan when it comes to remakes. I'm not, because
I'm not either.
leave the original. I think the original was the original. Hey, look, some remakes can be great. I get that. But I am a big fan of original content, original story, fresh ideas. We need more of that, I think, these days, I think sometimes it's a bit too many remakes these days. Show me something I haven't seen yet. Surprise me. Scare me. Do something different.
I do agree with Sam. I'm not a big fan of remakes. Like, I remember when they did the remake of Psycho, and I went to the cinemas. I was curious. I wanted to see how's it going to be different, and I could hear all the whispers around me, and the main whisper was, "What's the point of this?" They kept saying that because it was actually filmed exactly scene by scene. Everything was exactly. It wasn't that it was done better, or no, it was actually scene by scene. And I was sitting there, and everyone's like, "What's the point of this? Why are they doing this?" And like, they're doing again like the remake of Death Becomes Her with Meryl Streep.
Oh,
that
really?
that was a fantastic movie. So they're doing the remake of that. There was rumors they wanted to do the remake of Metropolis, that silent movie.
Oh, the German film?
Exactly.
No.
Yeah, they
no.
wanted to remake that, and I thought,
No.
wow. I'm like,
No.
yeah. That is a hard no.
That's hard to leave it alone.
Yeah. Another one was a remake of Gone with the Wind. And I thought, really? Yeah, see, we said the same thing. Really? I'm like, really? Sure you want to do that? So I am not a fan of remakes. I like to see just something original. Something, I mean, even, you know, our...
Oh, they did the remake of West Side Story. I've seen the original West Side Story. It was great. Was a remake necessary? Look, probably not. I'm sure it did great, but was it necessary?
Is it just a grab for cash? Because that's what it looks like. A recognizable brand. Let's just churn out a movie. A bunch of people will buy tickets. They might hate it, but we would have sold the tickets anyway.
Yeah. You are right, because people already know it. It already has its brand. It's got its own universe. It's got its own fan base as well. And I remember Steven Spielberg said that for him it was a passion project because he loved the movie so much. And that's the thing. It pretty much, and nothing against him, but I know that the critics were not nice about at all. I think it was kind of like ignored at the Academy Awards as well. Like there were probably no nominations, but I think you hit it like the nail on the head with that. You know, like a lot of people at the start were very hesitant with the remake of it. But it had its own fan base, so it's a bit very predictable. People like us who've seen the original one, of course we're going to go and watch it because I had high expectations.
And I actually didn't mind it though. It was okay. It wasn't that bad. Then you eat.
No, it was good. But sometimes I always say that the original ones are always the best.
I know the original is always the original, and it's even worse when I hear people say, like when West Side Story came out. I have a family friend, very young, and she said, "Oh, I'm going to go and watch West Side Story." And I'm like, "You know that's a remake." And she said, "What do you mean that's a remake? That's new." I'm like, "No, it's not new. That's a story that came out a long time ago." And she didn't believe me. And
I'm like, how old is she making us feel right now?
And I had to go on the internet show and know West Side Story was made many years ago. I can't remember when. 60s? 70s?
Yeah, but, no, probably... I'm not sure, but
I'm not sure.
It just goes to the point where we mentioned that we love the Beatles and someone said, "What is that?" And I'm like, okay, let me give you a history lesson. I said, yeah.
All right, so do you look for original kind of writing and movies in the films you consume elsewhere, Europe, Australia? How does Australian cinema stack up? Do you think there could be more done down here? Because I think so, and we're in Australia.
Yes,
Yeah.
I do.
And that's the thing. We are patriotic. I absolutely love Australia.
I love Australia.
But I do agree with you. Yes, a lot could be done.
A lot could be done. If anything,
Yes.
we've had a couple of rejections also in Australia. We've had more open arms perhaps overseas because I think perhaps in Europe, in America, are more open when it comes to horror. Don't get me wrong. Australia has a lot of genres. We've just had more better luck overseas.
Yeah,
Even with film festivals too, competitions.
Why do you think you're not having more success with Australian, I guess, for companies?
On its own, in Australia, obviously, the market is a lot more smaller as well. And the thing is, we kind of were receiving very similar feedback that they prefer if we write drama.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I'm mixing my words. Australia does make really good drama, but that's not what we write. And we didn't want to change that. And they said, don't forget, it has to be drama. You have to put a political social message in it and all this. And for us, I thought, okay, well, I don't feel qualified to do that. I know Samantha doesn't feel qualified to put any political social message in that.
Yeah.
For us, it's like whatever happened to just writing and creating just a fun story, scare people, and then they can talk about it and not sleep for the next week. But
You get asked to put political social messages in a script?
it's been requested, yes.
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
But just in Australia or overseas as well?
Mainly in Australia.
Yeah.
And the people that have said that to us, we always respect their opinion, but the only reason why we got rejected or we decided not to work with them is because we kind of wanted to, in a respectful way, to stand our ground and say, well, we're writing just a psychological horror. And that's it. It's like the good old days, unless is it us that we're not changing, I thought, because we just want to write a good horror story.
Yeah.
But I think it could use a really good shake-up.
I think it's maybe a sign of the times. This is how it is now. Because in television and movies, there's a lot of political
Yeah.
social
Yeah.
messaging and things like that.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
they're making the content so they can make it the way they want.
Yeah.
Yes.
But if you're not making content like that, you're unfortunately, you're going to have a bit of a harder time, it seems.
Absolutely. And again,
Yeah.
I'd rather leave that to more qualified writers if they want to, deliver a political theme, advice. Absolutely. For us, because I'm not into politics also, I like writing things that make you think more and explore stories. I stick to that. I write with what I know. If I had to write something political or something that was, I don't know, I'd probably fail as a writer if I had to do that.
You don't see yourselves writing anything other than horror?
Oh no, we're definitely
Comedy?
Comedy too, yes.
That's the one.
Oh,
That's probably
yeah.
the only genre that we would actually kind of sway away from horror is
Yeah.
absolutely comedy, because it's funny because there's been a lot of these preconceptions of what a horror writer looks like, and a lot of times people say, "Oh my God, you write horror? Like we thought you were a lawyer." I'm like, "Oh, trust me, I'm not a lawyer." But they think maybe we have to dress like gothic. I don't know. They've got this idea in their head, but if we're not writing horror though, we're actually, we're reading comedy. Like we love Schitt's Creek, Seinfeld, Frasier. Like we absolutely love, if it's not horror, it's comedy. So
yeah.
absolutely.
Comedy is definitely an area we're going to be exploring in the near future. I'm really looking forward to that actually.
Comedy and horror, connect those two for me. I'm just trying to understand the thought process here and where you're at.
Yeah, there's been some, horror comedies, and it's actually been shown that there was actually some research. There was this huge research in America where they discovered that if you put small doses of like dark humor in horror movies, people can actually digest it better. It's like that relief. They said you actually need it in horror movies. You need that one person to make like that really sarcastic remark where it's like the worst place to say it. So if you actually inject a little bit of comedy in horror, more people actually end up watching it as well. So
It's like, it's not that bad.
it's the relief.
It's okay.
Yeah,
We're going to survive.
but no one does.
Have you written any comedy yet?
Not yet.
We have
Not yet.
3
It's-
projects in our whiteboard. We're still planning it out. We just need to write it.
Apparently, that's the hardest genre to write.
You are
comedy.
right. Yes.
It can be hard, yes,
Yeah,
to
'cause-
make people laugh.
Yeah, to make people cry is very easy
that's
because
easy.
everyone's been through loss, heartbreak, and all that, so everyone can resonate. And one thing is that people, like Sam said, are afraid of the unknown. So again, it's easy to make someone afraid, but to make someone laugh, to get them out of that's difficult. My hat goes off to the comedy writers. So
Any indication of what your comedy is going to be about? Is there going to be some horror in there, or is there?
No,
Is it a series, a movie? Or?
It's going to be a series.
yeah,
It's going to be based on athletes and all the bad stuff that happens with athletes.
Yeah. I'm already
That's
laughing.
the only thing I want to say. I think about it, I'm already laughing because I know the stuff we're going to do.
I'm wondering what one comedy series I quite enjoyed recently is I've watched it a few times. Utopia. I don't know if you've watched that one.
Yeah, yes, I have seen it. Yeah, it's actually good. I actually enjoyed it.
Hilarious. I'm wondering if your one is going to be like that, because I'll definitely watch it
Yeah.
if it
It
is.
has some elements, yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but it just really shows, like I was saying to you earlier, how in good times or bad times, without even realizing, everyone turns to the arts. Whether it is writing or painting, drawing, sculpting, they're all forms of arts, and it keeps us pretty sane.
And at the end of the day, any painter, artist, whatever you're producing, you're telling a story. There's a story right there. Like I can look at something and say, okay, yeah, you can kind of you can pick up a story there. Or some emotion.
Speaking of story now, it's almost last question time. Maybe a couple more questions
Yeah.
I got. But what makes a good horror film? And what's your favourite horror film?
Favorite horror?
Both of you.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Well,
that's a tough one.
I've always said this repeatedly, that if you can really, but this is like if you can really scare us in a horror movie and there is minimal to no blood and no gore, for us, that's a good horror movie. Because now it's very easy just for the sake of it. There's just, slashes, blood, there's guts, there's gore. There's been a movie, like I couldn't get through The Terrifier. And they've made, I think, part 2 and part 3. It was on Netflix. Everyone was talking about it. And there was so much explicit gore that even I couldn't get through it. And that's why I said that's not our type of horror. But I think a good, really good horror movie is one that gets under your skin. It gets you thinking, what would I do in that situation? Or like, I think a good example of that was Jordan Peele's Get Out.
Yeah, that was good.
I've heard of that. Haven't seen it though.
It really gets you thinking. And, there's actually very little blood, you could say. And I thought, you know what, that he did a good job. That's why he won the Oscar for it. And I thought, and very well done for that. So, what's your favorite horror movie?
That's the thing. I loved The Ring. When I saw The Ring, I thought, this is such a good movie. And I remember when I watched that at the cinema, of course, it was just me and my friend. We were alone. And of course, someone sits right behind me. Was I comfortable? Absolutely not. It made the situation even more scary. And I kept turning around.
Breathing behind her.
Every 10 minutes, I turned around. And then all of a sudden, this guy stood up and he said, this is too scary. And he ran out of the cinema. It's just one of the things that you never, ever forget. And
just so you know, The Ring actually has no blood and gore. But yet, that was an original Japanese movie. And that gets under your skin. So
yeah. And I remember I read the screenplay to that. I loved The Walking Dead too. I read the screenplay, the pilot to The Walking Dead. Loved it. I thought it was fantastic. What was
I think
The Haunting of? Wow, it's on Netflix.
Oh well, there's like Haunting of Blind Manor.
Blind Manor, and there was the other one, Hill House. The Haunting of Hill House.
I've heard of that one too.
That's Mike Flanagan.
It was on my list for a while, I think. And
he's a
I didn't get around to
It was
watching
okay.
it.
I didn't mind it. It was really good. Read the screenplay to that also. That's the thing. If I watch something and I really enjoy it, I want to read the screenplay. Because I want to read it. I want to read how it was written. Again, because we're both readers. If you saw what our writing room looks, there's like piles of books and scripts.
Yeah, we're like, please don't tell people we live like this.
It's bad. You're lucky to even find me in there. Like, Samantha, you'll hear me echo.
That's how creatives should live.
Yeah,
that's how creatives should live.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. I kind of think if it had to be a favorite that I always go back to, it's a sci-fi horror, and it would have to be Aliens.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And the first one, Alien. Wow.
Alien,
Did that scare me?
Because that's what I kind of classified like sci-fi horror. It's probably my favorite because, again, everything was, how they even had to create, the xenomorph, the monster and all that, how the special effects and all that. And, even just, again, it goes back to the movie magic and all that, how they're going to the spaceship and we found out that a lot of those things that you see on the wall, they were just old air conditioners spray painted black. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite. As a kid, when I watched that, it terrified me. But I wanted to know more. The main character was Ripley going to survive towards the end? And mind you, there's a cat on board. Come on.
I remember the cat. Was there a cat?
Yeah,
there was a cat.
Jonesy. Yeah.
Okay.
There was a cat on board.
I feel like that would be me. It's like the cruise.
Why is there a cat on board?
Where's
Who
the cat?
knows?
Yeah.
But it's in the script.
Yeah.
I must admit, I enjoyed those films, and I even enjoyed like Prometheus
Oh, I love
as well.
Prometheus.
And
Ridley Scott is an absolute.
He's one of my favorite directors.
Yeah.
And I love all these movies.
Yeah.
Blade Runner too. Fantastic.
Yeah, well, they said Blade Runner is now considered one of the most important sci-fi, as well as like Metropolis. One of the most important movies in film, and rightfully so. They're absolutely just like, how can you improve on perfection?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
well, on that note,
Yeah.
I think that's a perfect podcast right there.
There you go.
There you go.
Thank you, Allison and Samantha, the Garcia sisters.
Thank you for
you.
having us. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And thank you for
Thank you.
listening.
We talk a lot.